66 Rams. That was his first year. They were 8-6. The year before that, in 65, the Rams are 4-10. In comes Allen. They go 8-6 that first year. 67 with the Rams. He's 11-1-2. They lose to Green Bay in that Western Conference playoff game, that famous game. The Packers beat him in Milwaukee 28-7. The following year, the Rams are 10-3-1, and the Rams did not make the playoffs. Baltimore made the playoffs that year. No, I'm sorry. The Baltimore was 13-1. The Rams are 10-3-1. Baltimore lost to the Jets. And then that was 68. 69, the Rams were 11-3. Lost to Minnesota in a championship game up in Minnesota 23-20. And then in 70, the last year that Allen was there, they faded a little bit. They were 9-4-1 and lost to San Francisco. Now, the game that Dick was talking about, in 69, Lombardi went to the Redskins. He took a year off, went to Washington. The year before he got there, the Redskins were 5-9. Vince's first year with Jurgensen at quarterback, they were 7-5-2. Lombardi, the Rams went to Washington and beat them 24-13. That's the game that Dick was talking about. Sharpest attack at 81 years of age. And then Lombardi got sick the following summer. This is the fall of 69. He got sick the following summer and died right before the season began, I believe. It may have been August, but he died in 1970. So there is a scenario with Vermeil with the Rams team. Mark in Maryland, and he did a good job there, Dick. And I like what he gave you. He gave you good information. Chris, I left the Eagles. I was making $75,000. I went to the games. They gave me $150,000. And then when I left the broadcast booth, I was making $400,000. And I went to the Rams. They paid me $5 million for 3 years. I mean, think about it. Think about that. In 15 years, he was making $75,000 for Philly. He goes to the broadcasting. They pay him double. And then 10 years later, they pay him triple to go back to the NFL. Think about the change in broadcasting or coaching in that 15-year period. Dick gave you that today. Without knowing it, he gave you that today. Here's Mark in Maryland. He's with us here on Mad Dog Unleashed. Hello, Marky. What's going on? What do you have for me, pal?
Hey, Chris. That's a good interview with the Vermeil. He's really good. So
why he's good because he's still with it. Right. He's sharp and he's got a good memory. That's why he's good. Go ahead.
Yeah, no doubt. So as far as Saban goes, I guess you got to put him up there as a college coach, as one of the best. He's got to be, like you say, in the top three. It's him or Bryant, one and two.
He mentioned a couple of coaches, McVay with USC, which we all know. The other two coaches that Dick mentioned, I was not that familiar with. We can have Eddie look them up. I mentioned Rockney. I forget the two coaches. Who were they, Mark? He mentioned two other college coaches.
Jim Owens was one. I can't
Jim
remember
Owens.
The other one,
well, look up Jim Owens. I got to get a little more information on Jim Owens. I thought of Osborne, Bob Devaney a little bit.
Yeah.
But he did not mention it. He mentioned Jim Owens. I'll get that information for you. Go ahead. What else do you have for me?
So, going back to the game, Alabama, I know I'm in the minority on this, but to me, that's a better game than 54-48. I like a defensive game a little more than, unopposed offense. And, Oklahoma, they gave up 3 touchdowns in that game where the guy wasn't even touched, where it was just a, run up the middle or whatever. At least this game is a little bit of drama with the defense. I just thought it was, maybe not until the fourth quarter when it really got more interesting, but to me, that game, that was a good, hard-fought game for them, and I would think that was probably Saban's most satisfying game of the 6 because they had to fight back and get in there. Now, like you said, they did get some breaks with the calls, but still, they were down 20-7 and somehow managed to pull it out.
Now, that's a good point, Mark. I like the Georgia-Oklahoma game better because it had a little defense. Remember, there was 2 touchdowns for each team defensively, one on a fumble, and then, of course, the Georgia had the interception down on the 5-yard line. So, but I get it. Too many points. I understand. Not as much here in the Alabama game. A lot of turnovers in the Alabama game, though. A couple of interceptions for Fromm. Obviously, a terrible intercept. Not a good pass by Tao, the rookie there. Not bad throw. So, I mean, there was some turnovers. But I understand. I can see people thinking that way. PJ is in Atlanta. Mad Dog Unleashed for him. PJ, good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Chris. That was great to hear Vermeil. Your gentleman calling in about Dean and Bobby Knight. I will give Bobby Knight one championship, but let's be honest, man. He hung on that last year. to beat Dean's records. I mean, he got kicked out of Texas Tech, for God's sakes. Dean's last year, he went to the Final Four. Bobby's last year, he's 12-8, and, you know, he gets kicked off. Bobby's just he pretty much ruined it for himself. I mean, Dean's got a better overall record.
One thing, PJ, Bobby beat Dean a lot head-to-head.
He beat him twice.
No, he beat him. He beat Jordan in a tournament.
Exactly. But my question is, you go play UCLA in 67, 68, 69, and 70 and see if you win any game.
But Bobby Knight played UCLA too, You know, Bobby got beat by Wooden in the tournament as well. Let's not forget that. And he also
the Final Four.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yeah, 1972, I believe it was. You can look it up.
No, Drake. I looked it up. They lost to UCLA beat Drake in the Final Four.
No. That's Kareem. PJ. That's Kareem's team. That's Alcindor. I'm talking about the team later on that had the 72 team. I believe with Walton. We can look it up, but I believe Walton beat Bobby Knight in the Final Four. I can look that up myself. Eddie, could you look that up for me? Knight, I believe Knight lost to Wooden in the Final Four. It may have been a regional final, but I believe he lost to him in the Final Four. Now, remember one other thing about Knight. You know, Knight's better team, forget the championship team. The year before, they probably were better, but they lost Scott May with that broken hand, and he didn't play. He was hurt, and they lost 91-90 to Kentucky in a regional final. Or Knight, remember, Knight, folks, be honest now. I know Knight's not everybody knows him, he loves him. In 2 years at Indiana, they were 64-1. And one of the games he lost, Scott May didn't play. Now, listen, Dean didn't do that. I'm sorry, Dean didn't do that. 17 in front of the hour. We continue. Mad Dog Unleashed.
Every day on SiriusXM's POTUS.